My stepson said, "You're not even a real man. You just pay for stuff." So I stopped paying for stuff. And suddenly, the real man he wanted wasn't there when the car broke down. He never said that line again. My name's Tom. I'm 46. I drive long-haul freight mostly between Nebraska and whoever's paying enough to keep the wheels spinning. It's not glamorous. It's not easy. But it's honest. My hands are thick from work. My knees ache in the cold. And my logbooks are cleaner than most preachers' souls. That road owns more of me than any house I've ever lived in. 5 years ago, I married Hannah. She was 39, worked at the clinic in town. Quiet eyes, tired laugh. The kind of woman who carried too much without ever saying she was tired. I remember the first time I saw her. Red sweater, coffee stain on the sleeve, arguing with the vending machine at the truck stop. Something in me recognized her. Or maybe I just wanted to be recognized for once. She had a son, Jaden, 13 when we met. All jawline and attitude. He had the posture of someone who expected the world to disappoint him. I didn't try to be his father. I figured there was already a man who filled that space, even if he was more myth than man. Tyler. The biological. The real one, as the boy would say later. The one who vanished after dropping seed, but still got the title. Tyler sent a jersey once, Broncos number 88. Jaden wore it like armor, like proof. A father-shaped shadow showed up once or twice a year in the form of a message or a gift card. That's all it took, apparently, to hold a boy's loyalty. Meanwhile, I was waking up at 4, skipping meals, crawling under cars he broke, and putting shoes on his feet when mine were falling apart. He never called me Dad. Never called me Tom, either. Usually just yo or hey. Sometimes I was invisible. Other times, I was the guy who handed over a debit card and asked no questions. I paid for his braces. Bought him a new front tire when he skidded out on his bike. Took him to practice, waited in the car while the real parents clapped from the bleachers. I never missed a birthday. He never said thank you. Hannah noticed. Once, she placed a hand on mine during dinner and whispered, "He'll come around." But she never made him. That silence, it was a permission slip. For him. For her. For the whole damn house to forget who was paying for the walls. I didn't push. I thought presence would do the talking. I thought showing up mattered. I worked extra halls to cover his insurance. Health, dental, vision. All under my name. He wrecked his phone, I bought another. He failed math, I paid for tutoring. He wanted a class ring. I handed over the money even though I never got one myself. Jaden never introduced me as anything. Not stepdad. Not friend. Just a man who lingered in the background of his life like furniture. When his friends came over, they'd nod at me like I was the janitor. I'd go out to the garage to give them space in the house I paid for. By 16, Jaden was growing into his sneer. The kind of teenager who leaves crumbs in every room and dares you to say something. I did. Once. He laughed. Called me boss. Like I was a joke in a uniform. Then turned to his mom and asked if he could stay out late. Like I wasn't even in the room. Hannah said nothing. Or worse. She smiled like boys will be boys. I kept my mouth shut. Ate cold dinner by myself in the den while the two of them shared a joke I wasn't part of. When he turned 17, he wanted a car. Said his friends all had one. I bought a used Honda. Replaced the brakes myself. Spent 2 weekends in the garage tuning it. Didn't even get a thank you text. He took the keys, drove off, left me with the oil stains. He never asked me how I was doing. Never once. Didn't care if I was sick, if I'd slept, if I'd been on the road for 12 hours straight. I came home once from a 3-day haul, stepped over his shoes in the hallway, and found him watching TV. He looked up and said, "Can you grab more soda?" Like I was the help. Still, I stayed. That's what stepfathers do, right? We take what's left behind and try to build something whole. We patch the roof while the house leaks contempt. We hold our breath and hope. Maybe someday, there'll be a crack in the wall where light can come in. That day never came. He turned 18 with more swagger than wisdom. Treated the house like a crash pad. Played music at midnight. Left lights on in every room. Took hour-long showers and laughed when the water bill came. He had no job, no rent, no respect. And when I said something, he looked me in the eye and smirked like I was interrupting his movie. Still, I paid. Still, I fixed. Still, I drove him to the DMV when he needed a license and handed over the paperwork with my name on it. You tell yourself it's worth it, that eventually the weight of what you give will tip the scale. But you start to realize something. Some people will drown in your effort and still blame you for not teaching them to swim. Jaden didn't hate me. That would have required feeling something. He tolerated me, used me, ignored me, and maybe that's worse. At least hate's honest. Hannah and I began to drift, quietly. We shared space but not breath. Her eyes dimmed when I brought up boundaries. She said I was too harsh. That Jaden was just figuring himself out. I asked her once, just once, to talk to him about respect. She changed the subject. I started eating dinner in the garage. I'd come home from a 600-mile stretch, hands aching, back tight, and find his music blasting through the walls. I'd ask him to turn it down. He'd give me that smirk, that same damn smirk. And every time I said nothing, I gave him another brick to build a wall between us. Still, I stayed, because I believed in time, because I thought showing up mattered, because I kept thinking maybe, just maybe, someone would finally see how much I was holding together. But I was wrong. And one night, one sentence would prove it. It was a Thursday night in late March when it finally happened. The kind of night where the air feels too still, like the whole house is holding its breath. I'd just gotten back from a haul through Iowa. 3 days of bad roads, worse coffee, and a trailer with a stubborn brake line. My back hurt. My eyes burned. All I wanted was a shower, a warm plate, and 30 minutes where no one asked me for anything. But the minute I opened the front door, I could feel it, the bass, the kind that rattled picture frames. That low, mindless thump of some trap remix Jaden always blasted when he wanted to be noticed without talking. The living room was dark except for the flickering colors from the TV. Plates on the coffee table, soda cans, chips on the floor, smelled like weed and cheap cologne. Jaden was stretched out across the couch like a king, socks half off, shirtless. He didn't even flinch when I stepped in. I stood in the doorway and said, "Turn it down." Nothing. I stepped closer. "Jaden." He looked up, eyes glazed with boredom or something stronger. No fear, no shame, just that same arrogant smirk that had become his second skin. He didn't move, just reached for the remote, clicked it down 2 notches and said, "Better." "No," I said, "not better." He rolled his eyes and stood, slow and dramatic, like I was inconveniencing him in his own castle. "What's the big deal? You just got here. Chill out, man." I looked around at the mess. Empty pizza boxes, dirty dishes crusted with sauce, a trail of wrappers leading toward the kitchen. "You gonna clean this up?" "Eventually," he shrugged. "Maybe tomorrow." "You live here," I said, my voice low. "You don't get to treat this place like a dump and expect someone else to follow behind you." He snorted, an actual snort, and turned his back to me. "Relax, dude. It's not like you're my dad or something." And that was it. The line. The one I'd spent 5 years circling, hoping I'd never hear out loud. "Not like you're my dad." He didn't even flinch when he said it. No hesitation. Just tossed it into the air like a beer can on the lawn. I stood there for a second too long. Everything went quiet in me, like a fuse that finally burned to the end. He kept walking, heading toward his room. Then he turned, halfway down the hall, and grinned. "You're not even a real man. You just pay for stuff." And then he slammed the door. Like he'd won. Like that was the mic drop. I didn't follow him. I didn't yell. I didn't even sigh. I walked into the kitchen. The hum of the refrigerator was louder than my thoughts. I poured a glass of water with hands that felt made of stone. Sat down at the table. The laminate was peeling at the corners. I'd meant to fix it. Another small thing on a long list of things I did so no one else had to. Then I pulled out my phone. I opened the app for his car insurance and canceled it. Deleted the payment method. Next, the debit card linked to his account, the one I refilled every week for gas, groceries, and whatever else he never said thank you for. Removed. Netflix. Gone. Spotify family plan. Deleted his profile. I found the login to the utility site. The power was in my name. I stared at it for a long time. Then I changed the password. Just in case. Then I opened my bank app. Scrolled through every monthly deduction tied to Jaden. It was a longer list than I expected. I canceled them one by one. No rage. No revenge. Just math. The cost of being invisible was too damn high. I went to bed that night next to Hannah. She stirred when I climbed in. Long trip? She mumbled. Yeah, I said. Real long. She kissed my shoulder and rolled over. Didn't ask about Jaden. Didn't mention the music, the mess, or the way I stood like stone in the kitchen for half an hour. The next morning I made coffee like usual. Took mine black. Left the rest in the pot. Sat at the table and waited. Jaden came down around 10, barefoot, yawning like a prince waking in a tower. He opened the fridge. Grabbed the milk. No good morning. No eye contact. Then he reached for the cereal box and froze. Empty. He opened the cupboard. No cereal. No Pop-Tarts. No snacks. No frozen pizzas in the freezer. The pantry was stripped clean. I'd stopped buying his groceries 2 weeks ago. Figured he'd notice eventually. He didn't say anything. Just paced around the kitchen like a caged dog. Finally turned and muttered, "Did we run out of everything or what?" I sipped my coffee. "Looks like it." "Well, can you go get some? I've got nothing for breakfast." "No." He blinked. "What?" "You've got your own debit card. Buy your own groceries." He pulled out his phone. Tapped. Tapped again. I could see it in his face, the freeze, the insufficient funds, the debt account. "What the hell, man?" he snapped. "Did my card get hacked?" "No," I said. "I canceled it." He laughed short, confused. "What do you mean, canceled it?" I said. "I'm done paying for someone who thinks I'm not a real man." His smirk faltered. I stood, poured another cup. "You want to be grown? Be grown. Get a job. Pay rent. Handle your own business. Or go stay with your real dad. See how that works out." He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "You serious?" I looked him dead in the eye. Dead serious. He stomped off. Slammed his door again. No speech this time. No one-liner. Just footsteps and silence. Hannah cornered me in the hallway later. Said, "You could have at least warned me." I said, "Warned you about what?" She didn't answer. That night, Jaden left the house. Packed a duffel bag and disappeared without a goodbye. Didn't say where he was going. Didn't need to. I heard later, through Hannah, that he moved in with Tyler. The real one. She got the message from her sister. A group text. Something about Tyler having an extra couch and Jaden needing space. I didn't say a word. Not that night. Not the next day. I went back to work. Ate dinner in peace. Sat in my own living room and turned the volume as loud as I wanted. The silence left behind? It didn't feel empty. Felt earned. 10 days. That's how long it took before reality came knocking. Jaden left like he meant it. Like he was walking into a better chapter. I watched him drag his duffel bag across the driveway. Head held high. Back turned like it was some kind of triumph. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't even glance in the rearview mirror when Tyler pulled up. Tyler, that ghost in a rusted Dodge Ram, came wearing a backwards hat, mirrored sunglasses, and the kind of grin that doesn't touch your eyes. He leaned on the horn twice, rolled the window down and yelled, "Yo!" like we were frat brothers. Then Jaden threw his bag in the back seat and climbed in. Hannah stood behind the screen door, arms crossed, lips pressed white. She didn't stop him. She didn't speak. She just watched her son vanish into the passenger seat of a man who hadn't shown up for anything but birthdays and excuses. Then the house was quiet. Too quiet. Like the silence left behind had sharp edges. First, it felt like peace. No slamming doors. No music shaking the walls. No smell of weed drifting from under his door. Just me, Hannah, and a house that finally breathed. But the stillness didn't last. Curdled. Hannah started moving through the house like a ghost. She cleaned his room even though he hadn't asked. Folded clothes he hadn't left behind. Kept setting a third plate at dinner, then quietly sliding it back into the cupboard. She said things like, "He's just finding himself," and "This could be good for him." I didn't argue. I didn't say what I was thinking. That Tyler wouldn't hold him accountable. That Jaden was about to learn what a real absence felt like. That some lessons only get taught when the lights go out and no one pays the bill. I just waited. Day 11, Hannah got a text during dinner. She went pale. Didn't finish her meal. Just stood up, walked to the sink, and stared out the window like the backyard might answer her. I asked, "Everything all right?" She held up her phone. It was from Jaden. "Tyler's place isn't what I thought. Couch is hard. He took my keys. Said if I'm staying here I gotta pay rent or clean." I raised my eyebrows. Took another bite of roast. Didn't say a word. She put the phone down. Didn't look at me for the rest of the night. 3 days later, another message came. "He keeps saying he's not a bank. That if I want food, I gotta buy it." I thought this was gonna be different. He's barely even home. I could feel the shift in her. In the way she stirred her coffee slower. In the way she started watching the door like she was waiting for someone who wasn't coming. That night, she asked, "Would you take him back?" I stared at her over the rim of my mug. "Not like before," I said. She nodded. Didn't push. A week passed. Then Jaden showed up. No car. No bag. Just him. Standing at the edge of the porch like he wasn't sure if he was welcome. Hoodie wrinkled. Shoes scuffed. Smelled like cigarettes and sweat. He didn't knock. Just waited. Like a stray dog too proud to beg. I opened the door. Didn't say anything. He cleared his throat. "Can I stay? If I pay rent?" I looked him in the eye. Then I stepped aside. He walked in slow like the house might bite him. Didn't say a word to his mom. Just sat on the edge of the couch and stared at the floor. I grabbed a folder from the office drawer. Printed rental agreement. $450 a month. Due on the 1st. Utilities split. Groceries separate. No extras. No rides. No bailouts. I placed it on the table. "You sign this," I said. "You live here, as a tenant." He nodded. Picked up the pen. Didn't ask for a discount. Didn't roll his eyes. Just signed his name. We didn't talk much after that. He kept to himself. Showered less. Ate cheap microwave meals. Slept more. But he vacuumed. Took out the trash without being told. Started using his own detergent and washing his own damn clothes. He didn't call me Dad. He never would. But one day, maybe 3 weeks in, he poked his head into the garage while I was under the hood of the truck. "Hey," he muttered, voice rough. "How do you change your oil?" I didn't say anything for a second. Then I handed him a rag. We worked in silence. I showed him the steps. Didn't give a speech. Didn't ask if he was sorry. Just walked him through it like any other man trying to keep something from breaking down. That night, as I wiped the grease from my hands, he said something low. So quiet I almost didn't catch it. "Thanks for not giving up on me." Like he did. He didn't wait for me to answer. Just walked back inside. I stood in the garage a long time after that, listening to the cicadas scream. That boy was never mine. But I carried him anyway. Not because I had to. Because someone had to. And the truth is, sometimes the only way to teach respect is to stop financing disrespect. To take your hands off the wheel and let the crash happen. Because nothing teaches gravity like a fall. Jaden's fall wasn't dramatic. No sobbing at the door. No begging. Just the slow erosion of pride until he realized who kept the lights on. And it wasn't Tyler. It never was. Jaden still lives in the house. Pays rent. Covers his own insurance. Buys his own groceries. We don't speak much. Not out of anger, but out of distance that can't be crossed. Some cracks don't fill back in once the house settles. He moved into the basement. Made it his. Hauled down a mattress, strung up some lights. Bought a mini fridge with his own cash. There's a padlock on it now. Boundaries are clearer when they cost something. I see him in passing. He nods sometimes. Leaves the bathroom clean. Picks up his packages from the porch without stomping. He's learning adulthood the way most men do, through silence, through failure, through realizing the world doesn't care who your father is, only what you bring to the table. Hannah tries in her way. She's warmer toward me now, less defensive. Maybe she saw the line he crossed. Maybe she just got tired of pretending love means tolerating everything. Either way, we've settled into something quieter. Not quite forgiveness. More like shared recognition. She never apologized. Not once. Not for the years I held up her son like scaffolding. Nor for the nights she stood silent while he tore me down in front of her. But some nights, she'll leave my dinner covered with foil if I'm late. And sometimes, I'll see her pause outside the basement door, hand raised like she might knock, then turning away. We all lost something. That's what they don't tell you about stepfatherhood. It's not about gain. It's not about adding to a family. It's about slowly bleeding for a child who might never see the wound. It's about being a man who fixes everything but can't fix the one thing that matters. Being seen. One night, not long ago, Jaden found me in the garage again. I was working on the mower. Belt had come loose. He hovered in the doorway, hands in his hoodie, shoulders tighter than usual. He said, "You know I told Tyler you cut me off." I didn't answer. He laughed, said, "Told you he'd crack. That's not your real dad. Anyway." I looked at him. He didn't look back. Then he offered me a couch again, Jaden said. Same one. Said I could come crash if I wanted. I waited. He looked down, kicked at a wrench. I told him no. That was it. No fanfare. No grand reconciliation. But I felt it land. The strange. The things that hit harder than apologies. He doesn't bring up Tyler anymore. Not even to blame him. The name has started to disappear, like an echo that fades after the door slams shut. Jaden got a job last week. Hardware store down the road. Minimum wage, part-time. I heard him in the kitchen telling his friend over the phone that it's boring but chill. I wanted to say, good. I wanted to say, welcome to the rest of your life. But I didn't. We're not there. Maybe we never will be. I don't expect him to call me Dad. That's a name reserved for ghosts and fantasies. He gave that name to someone who vanished. I just picked up the pieces. But I know this. When his car broke down last weekend, he didn't call Tyler. He knocked on the garage door. Didn't say much. Just looked at the jack and then at me. I grabbed the tools. We worked in silence. Grease and sweat say more than words ever could. And when we were done and he started the engine, and the old Civic roared back to life, he didn't high-five me. Didn't say thank you. He just nodded once, slowly. Then he drove off. I stood there, watching the taillights disappear, thinking how many years I spent waiting for one word that never came, and how maybe it never will. And how maybe that's all right. Because respect doesn't always speak. Sometimes it just shows up on time, brings its own tools, and wipes its shoes before coming inside. Hannah watched from the kitchen window. I saw her turn away, press her hand to her mouth. Whether it was guilt, gratitude, or just the weight of everything unspoken between us, I'll never know. But the air felt different that night. Not warm, not healed, but cleaner. And that's something. We're not a family. Not really. We're three people orbiting the same quiet house, learning how to carry the pieces we dropped along the way. But some nights, when the TV's off, and the fridge hums and no one's yelling, I hear footsteps overhead, a door closing gently, a faucet running. And I think, maybe this is the closest I'll get to peace. Maybe peace isn't everyone finally saying thank you. Maybe peace is not needing them to. Still, the question stays with me. Every time I look at the grocery receipt and see only 2 names. Every time I pass his room and smell nothing but detergent. Every time I hear a muffled, tired voice through the floorboards asking a coworker to swap shifts so he can make rent. Was I wrong? Was I cruel to pull the plug? To let him fall? To stop paying, stop carrying, stop saving? Or was that the only way to make him see? Because the truth is, I didn't stop loving him. I just stopped funding his contempt. So I ask you, all of you who've ever stood in the hallway of a house you paid for, watching someone else spit in your face while eating food you bought with hours they never saw, would you have stayed? Would you have endured it? Or would you, like me, have stepped back and finally let go?